Hello student. Currently we are learning the philosophical lecture from the H. Robert philosophy, the principle and art of cure by homeopathy, from which we are learning the sixth lecture, that is homeopathy and the fundamental laws. As we previously learned, the homeopathy is a fundamental science, and as a part of a fundamental science, it must work in harmony with all the natural realms, and the laws which apply to those realms must apply also. As homeopathy based on nature's law or natural laws, whatever is the other branches of sciences, it should be, or whatever is the principle applied in physics, chemistry, biology or biochemistry, these are also applicable for homeopathy. And we are take some example from the principles from physics, some principle from chemistry, some principle from biology, and discuss the various other laws which are also applicable in homeopathy. In previous lecture we learned the first formulated law of homeopathy, that is the similia similibus curantur, and this similia similibus curantur also the nature's law, and before Hahnemann n number of physicians recommended for this law and they also practiced with this law, but Hahnemann was the only person who established he tried to establish homeopathy on this principle, fundamental principle, that is the similia similibus curantur. For the supporting of this law, or only the law of similia is not enough to establish a perfect cure, while some other law from or some other nature's law also act as a supportive for fulfillment of the cure. And with this application of law, whenever we apply the most similar remedy to the particular patient, then this cure process takes place with a very predetermined manner, that is cure always takes place from above downward, from within outward, from an important organ to less important organ, and symptoms disappear in the reverse order of their appearance, and the first to appear being last to disappear. And in order to, or how the action of the homeopathic medicine is occurred, or it is a very subtle and very dynamic phenomena, still this law of similia you can explain with the help of the another principle from physics, which is given by Newton, the third law of motion, that is the action and reaction is equal and opposite. This remedial action and the reaction of the vital force against this remedial action, it is a basic principle of the modus operandi of homeopathic cure. Then whatever is the quantity is necessary for bring about the effective cure or the effective action, the quantity of the action necessary to effect any change in nature is the least possible. This law which is formulated by Maupertuis. This Maupertuis is a French mathematician, and a French mathematician gives the action or the law of principle of least action. The principle of least action states that in all natural phenomena a quantity called action tends to be minimized. That means very minimum quantity or the very infinitesimal quantity is required. It is, and in homeopathic terminology we can, this minimum or infinitesimal means it is a dynamic in nature, dynamic and spiritual in nature, almost not a quantity, but it is a only quality, isn't it? And by this application of the similar medicine in minimum doses, the very smallest and infinitesimal dose is able to acquire whatever is the deviation which occurred at the level of health. Then for the supportive of this law which is applied in mathematics and physics, then the quantity of the drug required is an inverse ratio of the similarity. That means the highest similarity required the very minimum quantity. It is a inverse ratio to the quantity of medicine. Then the law of quantity is the quantity of the action of homeopathic remedy is determined by its quantity and inverse ratio. This inverse ratio, this higher the similarity, the very low or very minimized quantity of the medicine. That you have to only use the quality of drug. Every one of you know the Avogadro number and the what happened when we potentize the medicine, as the quantity of medicine get on reduced while the quality increases, and this quality you have to use for eradication or for the cure of the disease. Then the next law we compare with homeopathy, that is a law which is given in biology. The function creates and develop organ. The function creates and develop organs. That means according to the function, the organs or the structure of the organ gets somehow the pathological changes are developed, and therefore whenever the function create at the whenever there is a derangement of the vital force, the functions or the sign and symptom, the functions get altered and it manifest outwardly in form of sign and symptom. And lastly, the organic changes or pathological changes are developed. The functional symptoms precede structural changes. That means before the occurrence of structural changes, before the pathological changes develop, there is the functional symptoms are developed precedely. Then first, whenever there is a deviation of the vital force, deviation from the state of health, first the functional symptoms are appear, and then it is followed by structural changes. These are the law of biology applicable well in homeopathy. Then the dose and quantity that will thoroughly permeate the organism and make its essential impress upon the vital force is that which will affect the functional sphere of the individual. Yes, you know, vital force is at the dynamic level. Our remedy or the by the process of potentization, the dose and quantity, whatever is the dose of the homeopathic medicine, it is dynamic in nature, able to reach at the plane of the vital force, and it react, and with this interplay of the vital force and the remedial action, there is a impression of this drug energy, and impress means it able to create the artificial and similar disease which now remove the natural disease. And therefore after this administration of the doses, how you decide the repetition, and never repeat our remedy so long as it continue to act. Yes, this principle, never to repeat your remedy so long as it is continues to act, until and until the action of the remedy is continue, it does not get finished or the medicine is acting, then you should not disturb the action of the remedy or flow of this energy, drug energy, by the repetition, because it always interferes the process of cure. And this principle we not decide from the application of the similar remedy. While this principle is used while drug proving, whenever we proceed the drug proving under the strict rules and regulation, then never repeat the dose in a proving while symptoms are manifest from the dose already taken. That means whenever we experiment on healthy human being and we administer a remedy with the purpose of drug proving, then you have to wait and watch until and until the action of the remedy continue. The symptoms are appear, and you should not disturb the remedial action on this healthy human being. Allow the symptom for the manifestation, and we never interfere by repetition of the doses. And this same principle you have to apply whenever you apply the homeopathic medicine in sick, isn't it? Then it is very logically you have to apply whatever it is true for the proving purpose, it is true for the treatment purpose. Examining still further into law governing the production of artificial disease state, we find there are laws governing the various state of types of substances which we desire to prove. As yet we may find these laws crudely phrased, but they follow closely the law of mutual action, the law of least action, and the law of quantity and quality. Yes, this homeopathic principle, that is a law of similia, it is related to the various other law which we observe in the realm of nature, that is, or you can say in a different field of science, that is a physics, chemistry, biology. That is the law of mutual action, law of least action, laws of quantity and quality. All these are closely related to the law of similia, and therefore on this basis he explains some laws. Any drug which in its natural state affects the vital energy but little while develop approving only in high potency. That means whenever the drug substances are, or how you decide the administration or the repetition of the doses, which is depending on the law of mutual action and the law of least action and the law of quantity and quality. The first rule is every drug substance has its own capacity to produce or tendency to produce some symptom. It alters state of health and manifests some group of symptom. While in drug substances, the action of every drug is not similar, or the intensity of the action of each and every drug substance is not similar, while it is varied, isn't it? And according to its verification of this action or the speed of action, you can differentiate drug into mild, moderate and toxic in nature, or which toxic medicine very speedily act, like snake venom or any other poisonous substances. While any drug which in its natural state in a crude form affect the vital energy but little will develop approving only in high potency. That means the drug substances which are of very mild in nature, which never produce very obvious effect on human being, then such type of drug substances you have to prove in higher potency. High potency only, because it is not because crude drug substance is very mild in nature, and therefore you have to arouse the quality of drug, and it is only possible by the process of potentization, and therefore you have to use the high potency in drug proving. Then second rule is, any drug which in its natural state disturbs the vital energy to functional manifestations only may be proven in a crude form. Some drugs are moderate in nature, and these are not very dangerous to the life of human being, but only have a functional changes. Any drug which in its natural state, that is in a crude form, disturb the vital energy to functional manifestation, only symptoms which are produced on the functional level only may be proven in a crude form. Such type of medicine which don't have any much obvious action and only the functional changes, the medicine is only able to produce only functional changes, then you can prove this drug in a crude form, because in crude form it doesn't have a tendency to produce any pathological changes or very severe, these are not threatened to the life of the patient. Therefore you can, and it has a drug energy enough to produce the functional changes. That means these are not weak as in a first condition, isn't it? Therefore you can prove in a crude form. Any drug which in its natural state disturb the vital energy to destructive manifestations should be proven only in a potentized form, and the drug substances in its natural state disturb the vital energy to destructive manifestation. Yes, there is a destructive manifestation is occur. Such substances, these are not constructive. These substances are called as toxins or poison. The toxins and poison, these are always dangerous to the human life, and therefore by their administration of the crude form may threaten the life of the prover, and therefore you have to use very little quantity. You have to only use the drug energy, but you don't have any pathophysiological action on prover, but you only need the desirable action or whatever is the or you don't use the crude medicinal substance, because it directly act on the cellular level, and because of this very toxic effect on cellular body, the destructive effect on cell, it may be threatened life of the prover, and therefore we have to use only the drug energy, which is only possible by the potentized form. Here H. Robert explained the 3 rules for the preparation of medicine for the drug proving, because these are, and because on this law your application or the your selection of potencies depend on what type of medicine it is. Let us take the next paragraph. It has been demonstrated that planetary movements have a definite relationship to life. The power of the moon over the tides is an ancient and constant observation. Yes, the planets are so far from us, so far from the earth, while these dynamic universal or the universal cosmic vital principle, vital energy have a direct relationship with our life, as earth is a planet and it is also endowed with those energy, and as we are a part of the earth, and we are also influenced by this cosmic energy, and everything in this solar system also influenced by this cosmic energy, and therefore one of the example he tried to explain you how it affect the human being. The power of the moon, yes, moon is a planet of earth, it revolve around earth and moon both revolve around sun. This power of moon over the tides, and everyone of you know these low tide and high tide, these are the phases of tide, these are depending upon the phases of moon. isn't it? And this relationship with the tide and phases of moon, it is observed since ancient time, and with the constant and keen observation, human can establish specific relationship and with a very mathematical calculation for the phases of moon and tides. The relationship of earth and the sun offers the irrefutable argument and in favor of the correlation of the planetary influences. And as you know, irrefutable means it is a, you can't explain clearly, or you can't answer, or you can't give answer properly. Yes, you know, but you can't explain because it is beyond our capacity, isn't it? And this, it is the relationship of the earth and the sun offers an irrefutable argument in favor of the correlation of the planetary influences. There is a very irrefutable, very unexplanatory relationship between this planet and sun. The influence of the phases of moon is some mental conditions and nervous complaint has been noted from the earliest time. Yes, it is observed that the person who have some mental problem, mental issues, there is an influence of the phases of moon on some mental condition, and the symptoms get aggravated, or the aggravation and amelioration of these mental symptoms, physician can observe that these are depending upon the phases of moon, and therefore, for instance, the appellation lunacy. Yes, therefore this mental illness which are depending upon the phases of moon, which get aggravate and amelioration of the symptom according to the phases of moon, we call it is a lunacy. And the disease is known as mental illness, is also known as lunacy, designated a mental disturbance definitely related to moon phases. Yes, this lunacy is definitely related to the moon phases, therefore it is called lunacy. You know, luna, it is a moon. Terminology is, it is a moon. From Greek, it is Greek terminology which is called as also synonymous with moon. Epileptic conditions also have some response, shown some response to the cycle of the moon, and this epileptic attack also, which is related to the totally to the brain, it is also related to the phases of moon. Therefore, we from this example we can conclude that though the moon is so far from earth, there is some influence of this dynamic energy on earth, and there is an effect of this dynamic energy, and there is a close relationship between earth and moon, as moon is a planet of earth. In other words, through these abnormal conditions of mental and nervous disturbance, we have pursued dimly from time to time the outline of a great truth. That cyclic manifestation have been demonstrated in other fields than the medicine is easily seen from the most cursory glance at the science of astronomy. Yes, in medicine it is we can know the influence of the moon phases on the human health or human mind, you can say. While it is whenever we cursory means it is very premature, it is not very deeply, but it is just as a very apparent glance on the science of astronomy. Yes, you know, when we learn the science of astronomy, there is some relationship between this planet. In its earlier stages, astronomy suffered from the same blind grouping, ignorance, and superstition that has hampered the intelligent observation of all natural phenomena. Nevertheless, it has emerged as a true science of mathematical existence. Yes, astronomy, there are different types of opinion from different scientists, you can say. These are all because of the, or these are all different, these are not based on a fixed principle, because of the ignorance and superstition, and therefore this hampered the intelligent observation of all natural phenomena. Because their sight is not so much wide, they cannot correlate the natural phenomena, and therefore the it has emerged, and this there were different types of opinion. While these are all, astronomy is emerged as a true science of mathematical exactness. While with this, whenever these mathematical calculations are developed, this astronomy is emerged as a true science of mathematical exactness. Yes, that means this science, whenever this astronomy is related with the mathematics, then it become very perfect because of the mathematical exactness. Mathematics is very exact. There is no suppose and all these things, but there is only the exact expression. Therefore, whenever this astronomy is related to the, or apply, it is explained with the mathematical explanation, then it is developed as a perfect science. It is still true that the deduction from the most careful measurement and computations vary between different schools, yet it is the most closely measurable to all of the science today. Yes, the various measurements and computations means calculations with different schools, yet because of this, as it is a science, as it is a mathematics, it is perfect. Let us quote from the Conscious Knowledge of Astronomy, History by the Agents M. Clark. Here is some example given from this Conscious Knowledge of Astronomy. The subjection of the moon to no law was completed by the dispersal of the mystery surrounding a slight continuous acceleration of her orbital velocity detected by Halley in 1693. It had been in progress since the earliest recorded eclipse in the 721 BC. If not longer, there was no sign of its cessation and reversal, and a grave question arose: was the principle of universal attraction elsewhere unreservedly obeyed, here fatally complicated by the action of the resisting medium, involving the eventual collapse of the Earth-Moon system? Laplace gave the answer in 1787 by proving the observed quickening of pace to be a necessary and simple consequences of a secular diminution in the ecliptically of the Earth orbit. This, however, will not go on forever in the same direction. After many ages, the tide of change will turn, and a complete restoration of to status quo ante will ensue. Renewous disturbances were shown to be excluded by the overwhelming disparity of mass between the central body and its attendant. No less than by the regularity slight acceleratory changes can occur. Millions of years will elapse to so beautifully adjusted as to right itself automatically through the mutual action of its various parts, and it is the force which perturbs the eventually restores. That the last sentence is very much important. Whatever is the millions of years will elapse so beautifully adjusted as to right itself automatically through a mutual action of its various parts, and it is the force which perturbs the eventually restore. That means whatever is disturbances occur from millions of years during this planetary development, there is after all or finally these are all eventually restored. Let us repeat the last line of this quotation in the light of our observation into relation of homeopathy and the fundamental laws. The machine is so beautifully adjusted as to right itself automatically through the mutual action of its various parts, and it is the force which perturbs the eventually restores. Here this body is compared as a machine, and this machine is so beautifully adjusted during the course of time, because of and during this evolutionary period the human being is automatically itself make a changes, and the evolution of the human being, and it is a mutual action of its various parts, and it is the force which perturbs that eventually restore, and it has a capacity to restore by and through its own energy, isn't it? The vital force has, every time it is not get disturbed in a very destructively, while it has a capacity to reconstruct and restore by and through its own energy. This last observation, acknowledged by the most exact of all science, and a deduction from observation of the most observable of all cyclic phenomena, is equally pertinent to the homeopathy and our beliefs in the lawful flow of the vital energy. Yes, whenever these whatever we learned previously, that during the evolution of this all planet, and it has whatever is the disturbances occur because of the very natural phenomena, every planet or every system of the nature has its own capacity to restore, and it is observable in all cyclic phenomena. Similarly, it is equally pertinent to homeopathy. Yes, it is equally pertinent to human being as well as homeopathy, and therefore our belief of the lawful flow of vital energy, as we explained that the vital force has a capacity to restore after whenever we annihilate or remove the natural disease, it has its own energy to restore, seek to heal, then it is applicable for this, or it is support the concept of vital force in homeopathy. This deduction so fundamental that it might well be called a law, is closely allied to that law of mathematics. The quantity of action necessary to effect any change in nature is the least possible. These are but a few of the laws which we, in our ignorance, have assembled from the vast resource at our command to demonstrate that homeopathy is governed by laws that are universal, and homeopathy therefore is a part of the fundamental lawfulness and orderliness of the universe. Yes, it is very important. Yes, it is a conclusion from all these lectures that homeopathy is governed by law that are universal, and that homeopathy therefore is a part of the fundamental lawfulness and orderliness of the universe. Yes, homeopathy is it follows the nature's law, and therefore it follows the fundamental lawfulness and orderliness. It is never against the order, while it is established the order. If we can apply a known law of biology, a known law of mathematics, and an accepted deduction of astronomy, we can as surely apply and tested laws of any other sphere of the universal activity. If we can apply a known law of biology, a known law of mathematics and a known law of astronomy, we can accept and deduction astronomy, we can be surely apply the tested law of any other sphere of universal activity. At some future time, we will be able to formulate definitely those laws which govern the vital force and its action in the human economy. This vital energy, yes, it is very subtle and very dynamic in nature. That's why we cannot observe or see with our sense organ or any observable with our sense organ. Yet during the course of time, whenever the advanced technologies develop, you can find out the action of the vital force on human economy. This vital energy, which is the sun of our individual human, yes, as the sun is a central place of the solar system and whole planets are revolve around him, around sun. Similarly, and all planet get, or you can say earth get energy from sun. The life on the earth is totally depending on the sun, and therefore he compared the vital force to the sun. This vital energy, which is the sun of our individual human economy, has a distinct relationship to universal vital energy. This vital energy, yes, which has it is energy, and definitely the energy, the earth get energy from sun, and therefore sun is responsible for carried out the whole living activity on earth, and therefore this our vital force, which is also responsible to carry out all the living activity in human body, and therefore there is a distinct relationship to universal vital energy. It is vital energy in the individual which offers homeopathy its scientific demonstration of healing. Yes, this vital energy which regulate all the sensation and function of the human body, it is without the considering the relationship of this vital energy in healing process, it would not be a scientific one. Of this mystery we now comprehend, but the state of disordered vital energy is that state in which homeopathy offers the greatest hope of regaining the lost balance of power in each individual, and that not by coercion of the vital force, but by so stimulating it at the equilibrium is restored by the same force that disturbs it. That the vital energy in itself is capable of disturbance and of self-restoration under a proper circumstances. Yes, it is a mystery that as this vital energy, whenever it affected by the vital energy of the potentized medicine, that is homeopathic potentized medicine, and with this help of this, it regaining the lost balance of power in each individual. That means whenever we apply this homeopathic medicine, it is suffixed and it is only the power which regaining the lost power of each individual, and that not by coercion. Coercion means it is a force, it is a compulsion, you can say, of the vital force, but by so stimulating it. Yes, it is not directly act with the vital force, but because of this dynamic nature of the medicine, it stimulate the vital force, so stimulating it that the equilibrium is restored by the same force that disturb it. That means as the disease force is dynamic in nature which affect the vital force, this dynamic derangement you only removed by the dynamic drug energy, and then the vital force is able to restore the disturbed harmony. Then that the vital energy in itself is capable of disturbance and of self restoration under the proper circumstances. We have used the law of homeopathy half blindly as it were, yet we recognize their tremendous significance and their possibilities. We have observed their action in countless cases of human misery. Yes, if we know the efficacy of the homeopathic drug, with your experience you can apply this homeopathic drug with very confidence, and you observe the very efficacy of this homeopathic medicine in various type of disease condition, and recognize the tremendous significance of it, isn't it? Without any without disturbing the energy flow and without deranging the human economy, this vital dynamic energy, drug energy, is able to restore or regain its balance. Let us be alert to observe and accurate to correlate the plain facts before us, that we may recognize, formulate, and work in accord with the fundamental laws that govern homeopathy and all nature. Let us repeat the last line of this quotation in the light of our observation into Let us be alert to observe and accurate to correlate the plain facts before us, that we may recognize, formulate, and work in accord with the fundamental laws and govern homeopathy and all nature. Yes, in whole lecture we learn how the different principle and laws of nature correlate with this homeopathic principal law, that is the similia similibus curanter. Therefore, we now let us be alert to observe and accurate to correlate the plain fact before us. Therefore, we try to explain and we try to observe the natural phenomena, we try to learn the natural principle before us that may recognize and formulate and work in accord with the fundamental laws that govern homeopathy and all nature. Whatever is and homeopathy is a fundamental, it is based on nature's law, and how it is applicable in each and every case you observe it. Yes, in whole lecture we learn it is a fundamental laws, that is a similia similibus curanter. Cure takes place from above downward, from within outward, from the most important organ to less important organ, and the reverse order of the onset of the symptom. Then we learn the law of least action, how these similar remedies act according to the action and reaction are equal and opposite. Then the desirable quantity of medicine which act of the quantity and there is a law of quantity and dose. The quantity of drug required is inverse ratio of the similarity of quantity. The quantity of action necessary to effect any change in nature is least possible. The decisive amount is always a minimum and infinitesimal. Of quality, quality of the action of homeopathic remedy is determined by its quantity in reverse ratio. Of use, the dose and quantity that will thoroughly permeate the organism and make its essential impress upon the vital force is that which will affect the functional sphere of the individual. Then how this application of the homeopathic remedy related to the biological law, and therefore the biological law of biological development, functions create and develop the organ. Of the disease development, functional symptoms are produced by the vital force in exact proportion of the profundity of the disturbance. Functional symptoms precede structural changes. Improving any drug which is in its natural state affect the vital energy, but little will develop, approving only in high potency. Any drug which in its natural state disturb the vital energy, so to functional manifestation only may be proven only in potentized form. The third rule is for the any drug which is in the natural state disturb the vital energy to destructive manifestation should be proven only in a potentized form. The rule of repetition: never repeat the dose while symptoms are manifested from the dose already taken. Then rule of repetition for cure: never repeat your remedy so long as it continue to act. Yes, thank you.